It's time to pound the cushion, presented by racingdirt.com. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, on this week's Pound the Cushion. We have the face of USAC, the world traveler, better known as the man who gets everything done in a little bit of time. Thanks for making time for me, sir, Mr. Drake York.
Absolutely, Bobby. It's my pleasure.
So this past weekend, USAC were back home again in Indiana. So you didn't have to log a bunch of highway miles, which you're probably a little bit, a little bit happy for that. But you guys made it to Lawrenceburg and Terre Haute, two of the fastest tracks in the state. What went on Saturday at Lawrenceburg?
Well, Saturday at Lawrenceburg was a great night. We'll get to the race here in a second, but just really fantastic to continue to remember the life and legacy of Justin Owen. For those of you that may not be familiar with who Justin was, he was a sprint car track champion there, won a few feature events there in his career. Sadly, we lost him there in a qualifying accident in 2023. And every year since then, his family and friends have put together this amazing race. And the thing I really like about that race is, they were a smaller family team who didn't have a lot of resources to work with, but, they got the job done. Every single night they showed up to the racetrack, and they don't just think about, how much can we make to win the race, but they also think about, how do we help the little guys throughout the field, which I think is super cool. Like, there was extra money for all sorts of things. I know they did for the fourth place in each heat race was a cash bonus, and the race itself was amazing. It was probably what Justin Owen would have loved. It was just old school Lawrenceburg, slick pretty much to the fence, a massive curb, especially in 3 and 4, really start to finish. I mean, we had amazing racing. Briggs Danner was able to make a last lap pass on Trey Osborne to win one of the heat races. We had guys coming from row 3 to win heat races. So that shows you how racy it was. And Briggs Danner eventually ended up getting the win. He had to track down Kyle Cummins too. And, Briggs has really been good there over the last 2 or so years, but Kyle and that Petty Performance Racing team, they're good everywhere. So to track down Kyle and get the win the way he did was super impressive. And we've said it a lot, but Briggs Danner's just not afraid of anything. I think that's what a lot of fans like about him. I mean, he was just hammering it.
Well, Briggs Danner is we've had him on the show. He is a superstar in the making, and the main reason for his success is because the kid is a fabricator. He builds cars, he builds parts, he designs his own TQ midget to run at the Allentown indoor stuff, and he's throwback. He's old school. Like, I don't care if track's big, let's go. Track's small, let's go. Track's got hose, let's go. I think Briggs Danner is. I hope we can keep him in the non-wing world. That's my only hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I think everybody that even considers themselves a fan of non-wing sprint car racing, whether it's a casual or diehard, I think you want Briggs Danner to stay into that Hogue Racing Enterprises team too. They're just some of the most fun people you can be around too. They do a really good job. My favorite part about that race team is they're blasting all kinds of music. By far the loudest in the pit area. Racing's kind of lost that, Bobby.
Yeah. Well, it has, and another thing too is. Part of the reason they're blasting the music because they have a 10-hour drive just to get to Indiana. So where most USAC teams are, centrally based out of the Indianapolis area. Briggs and them, they got plenty to think about when it goes wrong, but they got plenty to think about when it goes right too, because so much travel, where they're centrally located.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Bobby. I think it gets lost on some race fans too, because you have even like Kyle Cummins' team, yeah, they're in Southern Indiana, but they're still in Indiana, not terribly far from where the rest of, or I shouldn't say the rest of, but the majority of our USAC national sprint car races are. So it is a massive commitment from that team, and they go back and forth all the time. I get bored driving down the street and back, so I don't know how they do it. But yeah, real big tip of the cap to those guys. I mean, like I said, Briggs just drove a fantastic race, I was telling somebody Friday night, or rather Saturday night, leaving the racetrack, that I remember watching races at Lawrenceburg like that. And I know that's why me and a lot of people show up, every single week or every single time USAC's in town to see a racetrack like that. It almost had a little bit of a Tulare vibe to it. too, especially in the middle of 3 and 4.
Well, the thing about Lawrenceburg is, it's what sprint car racing's supposed to be. I know it gets a bad rap because we've had some fatalities and we've had major crashes and injuries, but man, when it's right, there's not no place in the country like it, and it was right Saturday night.
It really was. And the other thing too, I wanted to touch on too, we had an amazing car count, 31 cars at Lawrenceburg. And that there's no secret about it. Historically, over the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years, we've kind of struggled to get cars there. So, real big tip of the cap to everybody at Lawrenceburg, everybody that helped out with the Justin Owen Memorial, getting that together. And the thing I noticed too, it wasn't, we got a few more regional cars, but it was more guys that we see on like the local Friday night, Saturday night scene, like at Bloomington, Putnamville, or Perrigan. There was a few cars like that there too, like Austin Nye and Zach Pretorius come to mind of guys that kind of jumped off the page to me because we don't see them travel outside those racetracks a whole heck of a lot. So really great job to everybody down at Lawrenceburg.
And off topic, but how badass is Zach Pretorius' rap this year? that thing is mean.
It stands out on a racetrack. It's funny too because everybody, oh, it's a black car. I'm like, no, you can see the green from a mile away. It
Yes.
cancels out to black. It's a beautiful race car. I got a chance to somewhat look at it up close, walk around the pits on Saturday at Lawrenceburg. I mean, it's a beautiful race car. I know a lot of people have been talking about it on social media.
Yes. And then you guys make the trek all the way across the state. The I said you was back home again in Indiana, but you were almost as far east and as far west from the racetracks that you could be. You guys travel all the way to the western part of the state to hit Terre Haute Sunday. The action track it slicked off with the curb too. The tracks were on point this weekend.
Yeah, they really were. And I was talking to a few drivers at Terre Haute, and they said, "Man, we're really tired of putting on a bunch of tear offs to go run a heat race at Terre Haute." And I don't know how many tear offs these guys use, but it's probably a little less than we've had the last few times. And yeah, sure, there's a few of them like Sprint Week a few years ago comes to mind where it was just flooded, like it was monsooned. It was a kind of a accomplishment in itself to even race that night. But kind of vintage Terre Haute, and most of the reason that was, Bobby, is just because we had a lot of wind. I mean, like knock you off your feet almost type wind. I don't quite remember the speed we had on wind, but man, being at the top of the turn 4 grandstand, setting up one of our Flutter Racing cameras, it was windy. It was hard to get stuff to say where it was supposed to be. And even, it was funny too. I remarked to one of our crew members with Flutter Racing while we were setting up that camera, looking at the racetrack. We were watching a water truck go through. I mean, you would have thought it just rained a ton down at Terre Haute, but tip of the cap to the track prep crew. I know the track probably didn't start out the way they were hoping it to, but that thing got rained right back in a hurry from there. And the heat races were awesome. And in the feature event, obviously, for those that haven't watched it, you really need to go on Flow Racing and watch that one because it was amazing.
Well, one thing that I like what they've done at Terre Haute with the walls. You got the high guardrails in the corner now, which Brady Bacon probably wished they were up a few years earlier. But you got the big walls, the concrete stacked on the backstretch. The racetrack, a lot of people don't think about this, but it can take the wind though because it's got a barrier all the way around it. And, the track's not taking such a beating as it would years ago when the wind picks up like that.
Yeah, and that's actually a really fantastic point, Bobby, too. And the way the wind was going too, I think it was coming from the turn 1 end of the racetrack, if I'm not mistaken. So 3 and 4, I think 3 and 4 stayed the best out of all of them. But yeah, it was a heck of an effort by the track prep crew. Like I said, talked to a few drivers, and I know the fair board and everybody at Terre Haute didn't really want to see the racetrack go the way it did in qualifying. But like I said, they did a fantastic job of reining it in. And we talk about reasons why you'd want to go to Lawrenceburg. I remember watching, this would have probably been the 2014 or 15 Pullman Classic. I remember it was televised on MAV TV. And it was kind of the same thing, just slick to the fence. And there's that famous onboard of Robert Blue just bashing down the wall at both ends of the racetrack. And you think, man, that's cool. I want to go to Terre Haute. And kind of reminded me of that, especially in 1 and 2. 3 and 4 was a little bit more off the wall, but it had a good curve to lean on. And we saw a lot of great racing. I look at, there was a restart pretty early in the race, and we were 3 wide for second multiple times. So if that tells you anything, it was a good show.
Well, and to me, it's hard to fathom that Kyle Cummins picked up his very first USAC win at Terre Haute. Like, because the Petty Performance team is so good everywhere they go, you just kind of almost assumed, okay, he's won here before.
Yeah, I said almost as much in my Dirt Draft one to watch. Which, by the way, I've been winning a
You're
lot of
so
those.
great at that.
Yeah. Actually, can we get off topic for a second? I
Yeah,
have a story about that.
always.
So I picked Logan Seavey as my one to watch at Lawrenceburg, and they had the mud cover come off pretty early in the race, and it packed the right rear, and just the car never drove the same. And my parents go to Terre Haute for pretty much every USAC race, and they'll bring out their grill. By the way, best value in dirt track racing is you can get into the infield at the Acme track for $15. Bring whatever you want in the infield. My parents bring a whole grill to the infield.
Well, that's
They'll
good.
bring
You had
hot
food
dogs.
for the day.
Exactly. That's the whole idea. They bring their grill, they bring their hot dogs, they bring their hamburgers, bratwurst, you name it. And I was hungry and I wanted a hot dog, so I walked over to where my parents were. And out of nowhere, this lady in a Logan CD shirt comes up, and I'm like, man, I think I have a feeling I know what this is about.
I know where this is going.
And she's like, you're not picking CD tonight, are you? I said, I don't know. She's like, can you not? And I'm like, for you, probably. Yeah. Never met this woman in my life, but I thought it was very nice of her to take the time out of her day and tell me to not do that.
Well, sprint car fans are passionate, and I know everybody talks about Knoxville being the sprint car capital of the world, and the PA posse, but non-wing sprint car fans in the state of Indiana, there's no more raw passion than any form of motorsports across the world.
I would agree with that too, and there's a lot of great places for sprint car racing. I think of Pennsylvania, obviously, and you mentioned Knoxville, Australia. Like, I've had the good fortune of going down there a few times. They're diehards, but man, Indiana is certainly the happener of it, especially when it comes to the non-wing stuff too. Like, we're easily the non-wing capital of the world.
Yeah, 100%.
But to get back to your point that I so nicely derailed for you.
No, that's all right.
It was hard to believe.
You're part of the show. You know how it works. Hell, we don't talk about what we're never supposed to talk about.
Never.
Yeah.
But Kyle did a great job too. And like I said in my one to watch segment on Sunday night,
which I proudly
believe.
steal from you every week on my racetrack spotlight. So I give you your credit. We even call it the Drake York non-wing one to watch. Not like you're, they can go back and check out the old shows.
But yeah, I kind of just said the same thing that you did in the one to watch. Is I still can't believe Kyle Cummins hasn't won here. Yeah, he had won an MSCS race, the now defunct MSCS Sprint Car Series that toured around Indiana. He had won a race with them back in 2021, but never with USAC. He had gotten close on 2 occasions. He ran second twice. And the thing is, too, the other thing I take away from that win, there was a curve on both ends of the racetrack, but that wasn't the place to be at the start of the race. And talking to Kyle's crew chief, Cameron LaRose, he said, look, for the last year or so, we've really struggled on these racetracks that there's nothing really to lean on. And they were kind of worried that curb wasn't going to develop in the way it did. Thankfully, for Kyle's sake, it did. But they told me they hit on something there, too. So an even bigger reason to worry about the 3P boys. Now they've figured out stuff that they haven't really been good at for the last year. But, yeah, you can see it and hear it in Kyle's voice in victory lane. That win meant a lot.
And here's one thing, too, that I found fascinating about the race. Mitchell Moses kind of coming into his own stride here. I know people say it's a 3-car race at the points right now with the way Cummins, Grant, and Swanson's performing, but it's almost like Mitchell Moses is starting to get comfortable. I don't know if it's comfortable with the car, comfortable with the tracks now that he's been out here for a couple years, but you can almost see the confidence starting to ooze in him where it's not, okay, we ran good. He expects to run good now.
He does. And you look at last year, too. I mean, I could barely count it on 2 hands how many times Mitchell Moles ran on the podium, especially in second. I mean, he was on the podium a lot last year. And you look at the numbers, it's really surprising that he only got 1 win, and he did so barely over Kyle Cummins at Paragon. But, yeah, he's really figured out over the last year. So I'd say he was in the championship conversation. Maybe had it not been for Kyle Cummins' amazing season, record-breaking season in so many ways, Mitchell Moles, we could have been talking about a closer championship race into Casa Grande last year. But yeah, they really hit on something too. And off here, and Mitchell said, "Man, I'm tired of running second." She says to me every time
Yeah.
because I'm the guy that has to agree to the running second yet again. But he told me he barely cared about where he finished, and that's just Mitchell Moles. He just expects to win everywhere he goes, and
And
that's what we love about him.
well, you should. I mean, if you're in this sport and you expect to run second, then you might want to find something else to do. So as we the national sprint cars are off for a couple weeks. We start the month of May at Bloomington and Tri-State, but we have the Kokomo Grand Prix coming up to start the NOS Energy USAC National Midget Series. Points run. But what's Drake York doing? Because USAC's got an off weekend. So what's Drake York's World Travels doing? Because I know you got something up your sleeve. You're not sitting at home this
Uh,
weekend.
yeah, I'm not very good at sitting at home. So this weekend I'm off to the Long Beach Grand Prix down in beautiful Long Beach, California. Never been, despite living in California for most of my life, and second biggest race on the IndyCar calendar. So gonna check that out finally for the first time. I'm also a massive ocean liner nerd. If you see my social media when we're recording this, I just posted a bunch of stuff I've seen from all over with the Titanic exhibitions that I just happen to find apparently.
Yeah, I was
Overseas.
going to ask you about that, but I said I'm going to do that off air. But since you brought it up, like you're a closet Titanic lover.
Oh, big time. Yeah. Um, yeah. So it's funny. I've almost been to more Titanic things overseas than I have in America, despite there being places in Vegas, and Pigeon Forge is one of the really famous ones here. But yeah, I've always loved that stuff. So, but what I was getting to is the Queen Mary is a permanent resident of Long Beach. I've seen the Queen Mary from a distance, but I've never been on her. So, really excited about that. Gonna have a nice lunch, I think, on the Queen Mary when I get there, and do some ocean liner out, and then watch some Indy cars. And really thankful this weekend too to get another opportunity with IndyCar Radio Network to not be on air, but be pit spotting for my friend DJ Clark. I did that down in Barber, and had a lot of fun, learned a lot. I think that's about the most I've ever learned in an hour and 45 minutes, because that's about how long the race lasted. But had a terrific time. Glad they're bringing me back on for that. And yeah, getting ready to see what Long Beach is all about.
Well, have fun this weekend, and we'll catch up with you next week. And we won't talk about slide jobs. We'll talk about Indy cars. How's that sound?
Oh, that
Well,
puts me in heaven.
we,
Right there
yeah,
with the dirt stuff.
yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on. The World Traveler, the face of USAC, an all around good dude, Drake York. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Bobby.
Up next on the Trading Sliders Pound the Cushion, we have the National Dirt Late Model Hall of Famer, the Brownstown Speedway Hall of Famer, overall good guy for the sport. Has got I don't know how many hats you wear, but you must have a hat rack like no other. But the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. James Essex. How you doing, sir?
I got plenty of hats because I only got like 10 hairs, so I
Yeah.
got to cover that up. But anyway, that I appreciate it, Bobby. And yeah, I've been doing this a while, and I tell you what, I don't plan to retire or anything like that. I'm not going to be around forever, but we're going to make the most of it here. And, who knows, 10, 20 years, I don't know. We'll just keep on trucking, right?
Well, that's what I mean. I've seen you do it firsthand. Got to work with you a few weeks ago. And the style that you have and the way that your mannerisms in the press box, you can do it as long as you want because you're one of the most polite professional guys to work with.
I appreciate that, yeah.
But this week, well, first off, let's start last week. Mount Pillier Raceway had the biggest paying super late model race in the history of the racetrack. You had a good turnout. Weather was nice. So how was it at Mount Pillier before we push what we're going to push?
Well, I hadn't been there. We had a Northern All-Star modified race there in 2000, and that before last year, that was the only time we'd ever run modifieds was in 26 years ago. So it was good to be back there. A lot of changes. Ryan Suter does a great job there. He and his promotional team, they made a lot of improvements. They added some new dirt on there last fall. They had some rain on Friday. It affected a little bit, so they took some of that off, but still very racy. A really good crowd. The temperature was probably upper 50s. That's probably the coolest race we've had this year, the Northern All-Stars. I mean, we were at Florence, and it was, 75 to 80, and, of course, 80 at Ponderosa. So, but, yeah, good turnout, 29 cars. And there's still not a lot of cars. I mean, there's still some cars not done around there, super late models. I mean, I counted this week like 10. They're still waiting on parts from engines or rear ends or whatever. So hopefully some of those will be able to come out this week at Paragon and Brownstown. But, yeah, Pretty neat place, good racetrack, good race. Rusty Slank had it won. I mean, the guy was a straightaway ahead of Jason Jameson by about 2 seconds, and Jameson caught him in traffic and led a few laps, and Rusty got back around him. So his first win of the Northern All-Star. So it turned out really well, and we got a tight points battle heading into this weekend, and we're off to a good start, and we look forward to Friday and Saturday this week.
Well, what I love about the Northern All Star Series is you guys, the regional racing, and especially in the state of Indiana, but the regional late model racing we need. Without the Northern All Stars, without the Mars, without the Ironman, without all you guys,
Right.
our national tour won't prosper. Both national tours, because I know you work for Lucas, but you want late model racing to be good in a whole. And one thing that I appreciate was, because I remember the original Indiana Late Model Speed Week. I remember all the Kevin Claycombs and Don O'Neills, Mike Jules. So our young kids, our Devin Gilpins, our Collins, all these guys, they need that same opportunity to race. And I appreciate you bringing this back.
Well, I think, Bobby, another thing is back then, late 90s, early 2000s, I mean, it paid like $2,000 to win.
Yeah.
You try to do that nowadays, it's not great, obviously. I mean, everything's increased in price, but our lowest paying race is $7,500. We've got one in Montpelier and then one in Lawrenceburg, and everything else is $10,000. And, a big shout out to the joiners at Hunt the Front TV. They've come on board and helped us, and they've done really well when nobody really wanted to do this until they picked it up, and I think it's been successful for both of us, and they cut the track a pretty good check, so that's good. And I mean, there's a lot of good streaming options out there, and they do theirs. They've got all the Northern All-Star races, all the Hunter. It's like $34.99 a month. You can cancel at any time or whatever. So it's a pretty good deal, and it really helps the tracks out, because there are some streaming services out there that really don't do quite honestly what they need to do. Now, I know Flow, obviously, with Lucas, they do a great job. I can't speak for some of the other ones. So, but I know, talking to promoters, that, we're on the right path with our deal. And, and I do this because, like I said, growing up around here, like you said, the Mike Jules and the Don O'Neills and the John Gills and the Steve Barnetts and the on and on, and the Kevin Claycombs, right? On and on and on. I mean, that's those guys. Before that, the Ray Gotze's and the Russ Petros and the Don Hobbs
and the Jim
and
Curry,
the Astons and the Paul Crockett. Yeah, Jim Curry, right? And you could include him in there in the Northern All Stars there in the early 2000s as well. But yeah, I mean, those guys are what I grew up with, and worked at Brownstown for over 20 years with those guys. So, and then eventually they are now. Don O'Neill's racing this weekend up there again, his own track, but. Eventually they retire, they quit driving, whatever happens. And, you got this new breed, just like you said, the Cody Mahoney's, the Tyler Collins, the, Devin Gilpins, you could go on and on. We got a really good roster, and
Jason Jameson,
Josh Rice the last three, Jason Jameson, you've got Josh Rice the last 3 years a champion. Now he'll be with us a lot the rest of the year, but I mean, he's running for rookie there in Lucas Oil. So, we got Trevor Landrum's doing a great job, former track champion of Florence. And what we're trying to do with DJ Spode, on the sling and dirt thing as well, as far as, racing around Indiana and Kentucky, is to try to get guys back into this thing, such as a Dustin Linville, people like that have been out of it, really super late model racing for a while, but those guys put butts in the grandstands, right? So
if you go in Central Kentucky,
it's working out really,
Central Kentucky, Dustin Linville, Jeff Watson. I mean, you got a bunch of guys down there that they show up in Michael Chilton. I mean, they show up in droves.
Exactly right.
So this week,
David Webb, one of our regulars for the last couple of years, he does a great job, and had some bad luck the other night in Montpelier, but he'll be back this week. But yeah, I mean, just good people to work with, but we're trying to build their name and to pay them good money. I mean, like I said, you go run a regular show anymore, it's tough. It's tough to get cars. And I've seen some, like the modifieds. I mean, we've done good on our modifieds. we've had 31 and 32 cars. And when I look at this past weekend, some of the tracks that had modifieds, and they were like in single digits or early teens. And I'm not really sure why, but we feel like we're strong there too, Bob.
Yeah. We had a pretty good car count this weekend in modified deal too down south. We ended up with 27 this weekend, so it was one of those deals. Well, this weekend you got the Marvin O'Neill Memorial,
right?
How many O'Neills? I know you've been gathering them all up. So how many O'Neills are we going to have there racing this weekend?
Where you're going to have Don. Don is confirmed he is racing. He's going to drive the Masters Wheelhouse car Friday night at Perrigan. That's where he started his career at. That's where his dad raced for years. His brother Marty raced there for years. Hudson O'Neill will be there. That's Marvin's grandson, of course. You might have heard of Hudson O'Neill.
Yeah. Everybody. He's kind of the hottest dirt late model driver in the country right now.
He's won 11 races, I believe, which leads the country. And this week's rankings, number 2 to Bobby Pierce of the nation. And they're they could go either way on that one this year. They've both been good. Of course, he's second in the Lucas Oil points. Former Lucas Oil champion, but he had never run Perrigan last year until last year. So, basically grew up in Martinsville, Indiana, just a stone's throw away, but never had raced there. And Don O'Neill's not raced there since he last drove there in the 1980s. So that's pretty cool to have him.
Well, that's because it's a sprint car track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, and they used to run limited late models on regular. They called them limited late models. I think they were probably stock front clip cars, but you had Marvin and Marty and Don and some other guys, the Barrows, Gary Barrow and Ernie Barrow, Jim Nichols, guys like that. That's where they got their start at. But having Don O'Neill there is a big thing. I mean, a Hall of Famer, right? All the Lucas Oil Championship, all the Lucas Oil wins. He's the all-time winningest driver in the Northern All-Stars, even though he has not run a Northern All-Star Series race since I brought it back in 2023. So that's rather interesting. But, I look for, I'm getting a lot of calls, a lot of messages. We'll see how the weather goes for Saturday at Brownstown.
Yeah, it's 50-50 here in the Louisville area.
And we hope to get it in. I've been talking to John Gill. He's gone out and done a great job with sponsors. And both nights, everybody's done a great job, the O'Neill family and John Gill on his race on Saturday night. And you got not Winter Circle money, but Hard Charger money. You got Fast Time money. You got He Race winner money. All that's great. And, Friday looks really good. I mean, you're looking at a high about 84, really not much of a chance of rain till after midnight. And Saturday, we'll just see how it goes. It is this time of year. It could, you just don't want to jump the gun and call it too early, but hopefully it'll be delayed, the weather coming through, but we will just have to see. But I'm getting calls. I mean, there's some tracks out west that may or may not, with the weather, just have to see. Hopefully they get their stuff in, but just in case we're there and, we could really have a really good car count this weekend. I feel confident anyway, but it could be even bigger and better. We'll just have to see.
Well, the thing about Brownstown is it's not with it not being so far from Perrigan. Some weekends you got to call early. This one here, you can kind of wait and watch the weather pattern because you're not costing guys travel. It's right there. I mean, you can kind of watch the weather pattern a little bit.
Great point, Bobby. And I've always believed in that. And I learned that a lot of it from Rick Schwally. And of course, I've been a promoter before, so I don't like to waste people's time and money, right? So, you have people stay overnight and they got to get a hotel and, let's wait till noon or let's do this and that. And I always hate it to when a track opens a pit gate, right? And they get everybody in there and then it rains, right? So then tracks do not issue refunds. We know that, unless it's like the last race of the year, maybe. But they give you a rain check in hopes that you can find a rain date, which sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. So, I mean, I don't want to, the way diesel fuel prices are, the way just overall fuel prices are for everybody, fans and race teams. I mean, I just don't want to waste anybody's time, right? So we'll just see. We'll play it by ear. I mean, this is only Tuesday. This show aired on Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Thursday.
Yeah.
So we still got a little bit of time here to look, and it could change. It always changes, as you know, in this area. And this is still only April, so things could happen. But we hope for better on Saturday, that it can change, but Friday definitely looks good. So I'm really enthused about both shows. I hope we can get both in. And, you know, it was like a couple weeks ago in Mudlick, you know, and they had got an inch of rain that day at Ponderosa, and it was like it just, you know, the way the weather forecast about race time at Mudlick, it was going to rain. So if you can't, number one, if you can't get the whole show in, everybody's got a weather app, right?
100%.
Fans, race teams, everybody's got 10 or 12 of them, right?
Yeah.
And they know, and even though it's not a flow or dirt vision, anything like that, on Hunt the Front, which has a good viewing audience, it's still people will come out. It's just that everybody looks at the radar thinking, okay, do I want to drive an hour or 2 or 3? And I know it's going to rain, and they're not going to issue refunds, and blah, 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 blah. You know, We've all been through there, done that. So, you know, like I said, I'm just not into wasting people's time and money, especially with the way prices are now. I mean, you know, so
Yeah, well, the times have changed, and
times
you know,
have changed.
and
Yeah.
streaming is, it helps the sport more than it hurts it. I'm a firm believer than that. But also, on the same token, sometimes I wish we could just go back and everybody just show up and not,
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Like, just because that's the way I grew up.
I remember driving to the racetrack, and you'd stop and use a payphone, right?
Yes.
I mean, kids today now, they have no idea what a payphone is, right? But you stop and use a payphone, put a quarter or two in there, and call the track, and it'd always be busy, you know. So, but I learned that lesson a long time ago at Brownstown from a gentleman named Ted Collins, which is Tyler Collins' grandfather. He said that, you know, if he called a race like at noon, and this is back before, obviously, internet, before even answering machines, right? So he said one of the things to do is just leave the phone off the hook, right? So it just rained busy all afternoon, and you had to go to the racetrack, and if they had a sign on the gate saying it rained out or whatever, then you knew that was that. But yeah, that's a good point. And I talked to somebody about that last weekend, another promoter, and it's like, you know, if you get really good weather, you know, I'm not saying perfect, but close to it, but really good weather, you're going to do fine.
Yes.
Whether it's a Lucas Oil race, Northern All-Stars, whoever it's going to be, you're going to do really well. But if you've got that 40, 50, 60% chance of rain, the temperature's a little off, like at Brownstown a few weeks ago when we ran the icebreaker, was in the 50s. People they can just stay at home. I know they can watch it on Flow. I get all that. It's always better to come out, but I get all of it. Trust me. And I hear it on all sides, but it's a thing that is here. People talk about a blackout. Why don't they do a blackout? Well, you can't do that on streaming.
No.
You remember how the NFL used to do that? If you didn't have a sellout within 72 hours, your home game, then it was blacked out. But that was by CBS or NBC or whoever. But this streaming, you can't block anything out.
Well,
there's no way you could do that. So,
and a lot of people don't understand. Some of these racetracks we go to, and I work for a couple series that our stuff streamed too. But some of these places you go to, you know, they don't understand. It's run off 2 cell phones and a hotspot, because it takes a lot of behind the scenes work to get the streaming out there.
Yeah.
You can't. There's no chance, no way in hell you can even try to block out something.
Yeah, right. Right, Bobby. This is like 2026, right? And Wi-Fi is. I guarantee you, you go to Tazewell, Tennessee a few weeks ago, and I've been there enough to know you can't get nothing.
No
you
shot.
Can't get nothing in Tazewell, Tennessee. And there's Batesville, Arkansas has always been an example of very difficult to get a signal. And we go out east. If you got an AT&T phone, you're good. But if you got Verizon, I don't know, not so much.
Not
right?
so much. So.
Yeah, but I think it has been good because, you know, 5, 7, 8 years ago, you had nothing. You had some dirt on dirt pay-per-views. Everything else was not live, right?
Yeah.
Everything else was not live.
I've got 1,000 of Sports Plus videos. Oh my God! Because, you know,
right.
DVDs and VHS tapes. Because, you know, I'm the type of person, streaming don't bother me, because I'm going, if it's within 4 hours, I'm going to the races. If I want to see it, I just catch up on the streaming all during the week. Where, you know, like right now, I got TV on while I'm talking to you, catching up with this past weekend's USAC stuff. So I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I'm watching the Weather Channel, so that's my life, right? Just watching the Weather Channel instead of race replays. But you know, it's. I mean, quite honest. Let's be honest about it. 10 years ago, not many people had heard of Fairbury, Illinois, right?
Exactly.
And then with its dirt on dirt or dirt vision or flow, Everybody knows about Fairbury, and everybody wants to go, right?
Yeah, it's
And
it's
you
a
hear that a lot of
destination
tracks. It's
place.
like
Yeah.
Port Royal, Knoxville. Of course, everybody knows about Eldora. So, but there's people that it's still hard to believe. There's probably people that have never been to Eldora, but it's the most iconic dirt track in the world. But yeah, I mean, people see this like when we had that Lucas race at Golden Isles. It was like, wow. There's
Yes.
3 or 4 wide racing all week long. It's like, well, I want to go there next year if it's in March again.
Well, here's
The weather was great.
Well, here's what I said about that. I said because people were complaining, about the first couple of nights. Well, the racing really wasn't. I say if you got a problem with the way Golden Isles went down, you need to find a new hobby. Take up golf, go bowling, because racing's not for you if you did not enjoy the Golden Isle Lucas Oil race.
Well, here's my point about it. Over the last several years, it's you're exactly right, and it's amazing that when, let's say, Devin Moran or Hudson O'Neal or Brandon Overton or Nick Hoffman or Ryan Gustin, whoever wins a race, nobody says nothing. But when Jonathan Davenport or Ricky Thornton or Bobby Pierce wins, well, they started on the front row.
Yeah.
This is boring.
Yeah.
You guys' format sucks.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I think the Outlaws have had 7 different winners this year. Lucas has had 5. So, and they've run more races than we have. Of course, we'll get it going here in a week or so. But people just, it amazes you. It's like you go to Eldora. It's like, we know how good Davenport is there, but it's like they started him there. They didn't. They did. It's an invert. Everything they do is an invert. It's been that way forever. I've never had a driver say, I'm not going Eldora because they do inverts. They all show up, right?
Yeah,
they all show up.
And here's one thing. Now, here we are. You and I do this all the time. We'll start talking, and people complain about every format you use. But if you look at the USAC, I mean, I spend a lot of my time in Central Indiana. You live in Central Indiana. You look at the USAC sprint car deal. They invert and even re-invert the feature. Usually, it doesn't matter what the format is, the cream rises to the top. Unless the track locks down and rubbers up, then that's different. But usually it doesn't matter what type of racing, what type of track, the cream rises to the top. The guys
Bobby, I'm a late, yeah, right. I'm a late model man through and through, forever and forever, ever, ever. But this USAC Sprints, they put on about the best show you can see as far as racing. They can pass. They can run side to side. They do wheelies, whatever the hell else you want to see it. But it's like they put on a heck of a show.
100%.
They always do, no matter where they're at. They've got a lot of good drivers. It's a very competitive division. And to me, that's some of the best race. Wing sprints are okay, but it's like hammer down. It's hard to pass. Late models, yeah, it could be better. But I've seen some really good late model races this year. So, I mean, it is what it is. But it always just amazes me, some of the fans' comments about whatever, right? About a certain driver, about a track, about a series, about an announcer. I mean, I'm one that has never gone on social media barking at a racetrack or at another announcer because I know how tough it is, right?
100%. Yeah,
I know.
I'm in the same boat.
I mean, not everybody's going to like you, right? Not everybody's going to like you. They're going to have their own comment. And, James and Dustin, we don't show favoritism toward anybody. If somebody wins a race, are we not supposed to talk about them?
Yeah, exactly.
People are like, they kiss, so-and-so's butt. And well, get out of here with that stuff.
Yeah.
If
you
guys
win a
race,
you guys talk about.
I don't care if it's.
Talk about Ricky. You talk about Ricky Thornton Jr.
Kyle Larson, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you guys talked about Ricky Thornton Jr. a lot last year. It's because he won a lot.
It's like when it's like when Josh Richards come over and ran Lucas driving for the best, and he wins. I don't know how many races he won, 5 or 6, 7. I don't remember, and he won the points. Like me, Essex, all he does is talk about Joshua. Well, the guy won the championship. He won a lot of races. Yeah. Am I not supposed to talk about him? What do they want me to do? Talk about the guy that ran 15th?
I can't believe you announced all those years at Brownstown and talked about Don O'Neill, Mike Jewell, and Steve Barnett. I cannot believe it. You did not mention anybody.
Well,
yeah. But we'll
Yeah,
have
my
to,
standing around there.
yeah, we'll have
Yeah,
to
I
get
saw
you
John
on.
Gill. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to get
Yeah.
you on for a deep dive because the deep dive,
Oh yeah, I
we're
could go on for a while.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're spinning out. We're trying to push your event, but we're going to go down
I've
this rabbit
already
hole.
spun out.
Yeah,
I've been sent to the pits
yeah. You done had your
twice.
two spin. The commissioner of the Crown Vics has already got his two. But at least you're not at Boone. We gave
Hey,
you a second
Crown Vic,
opportunity.
that's some shit. I want to see this Scotty Earl Holbert car. I
It's
want to see Chuck Barnes behind the wheel
well, you've
of
got
a
it
weight
coming.
model.
You got it coming. Chuck Barnes Jr. will be making his debut very soon. So waiting on
Well,
it.
Tony Darnell's coming back, so
Yeah, I seen
get
that
all
too. Yeah, I seen powerhouse race cars.
the powerhouse
Wait,
number 8.
you want to? This is okay. Here we go off subject again. You know what my first high school job was? Doing the patterns
Well,
for
I'm working for Huey Darnell.
That's
I don't
you
know.
100%. You just nailed it. Doing all the patterns, making all the skirts and everything for Huey because my dad was a racer, and when I was 8 years old, I was welding cages in race cars and stuff. That was what I did when I was a kid. And when I was in high school, I stopped by Huey's one day, and it turned into 2 summers worth of work. That's working on race cars. So.
Well, I met him and Tony when I worked at Charlestown.
Okay.
That's where I first met them on the dirt, and they had a Camaro or whatever hobby stock, and then they went to late model, and they ran a lot of Brownstown and Barron County, and they ate the powerhouse, and that was actually the candy bar. They were actually sponsored by that food company or whatever that produced that, so that was legitimate. So, and I say Tony, he was back at Brownstown the other night in a crate car, but I mean those guys back in the day, people don't, the Danny Blackwells and the Daryl Hunters and the Rodney Gaines and the Tom Seidler and the people like that ran with us all the time in Brownstown. That was pretty cool. Those were a good group of guys there.
Yeah. You're talking that Danny Blackwell was he's family. My dad, Del Puckett and Rick Irwin, all those guys raced. That was all.
I think I announced your dad won a big enduro race. Did he not win one at Scottsburg, Indiana, right?
Yeah, he won
Did
Scottsburg.
He not win one?
Yeah, no, he won Scottsburg.
I announced that race, yeah.
Scottsburg, he had like a 5-week period there where he got Bloomington, Scottsburg, Brownstown, and Twin Cities. In like a month. It's like, I mean, this is back, early 80s, and it's like $25,000 worth of enduros in a month. So yeah, so that was that was back in the day.
We could go on forever.
Yeah. But appreciate you coming on. We'll get you on for the deep dive. But get out this week. Check out the Northern All Star late models. I'm not going to do my voiceover commercial because I've already recorded a couple of them already today for another series. So my voice is shot. But Marvin O'Neill Memorial, John Gill Classic, Brownstown Speedway, Paragon Speedway, and we'll have James Essex back on, and we'll do a deep dive. And you thought this spiraled out of control. Let us actually prepare for something, and no telling what we'll say. But we appreciate you coming on, sir.
We solved all the issues in race. Yeah, we solved all the issues, didn't we?
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good talking with you because I like that because people need to see it from our side, right?
Yeah, I mean,
people just see us on Flow or on whatever we're on, and they just think that this is easy, right? So ain't nothing easy about it. What they say, if it's easy, everybody could do it.
Everybody could do it. Well, I don't know. Me and you're doing it, so hell, who knows? Maybe everybody could do it
because that was pretty fun at Ponderosa.
Yeah, we did have a good time.
That was a heck of a crowd and a heck of a show.
So I appreciate you letting me hang out with you. So all right, thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.